Hey fellow babies, welcome back to this week's Pachter Factor on SIFTD.net. Hoping you're watching it real time on SIFTD. As a patron on Patreon, it's only $2 a month to get Pachter Factor a week early. We have about 50 episodes, so that comes out to be about 50 cents per episode. So if you can afford it, please be a patron. If you can't afford it, it's a freebie if you already have Amazon Prime to link your Twitch account to Amazon Prime, instructions below. If you've done that, you have to remember each month to go through one click and renew the subscription, and we get $2.50. So it's actually better for us if you link your Twitch account to your Prime account. You're allowed to do both as well. From SIFTD, from Mick Womble. Mick Womble asks a lot of questions. I like him. We seem to be coming to the end of the zombie phase in video games. No, we're not. Please, did you play Call of Duty? They're zombies. They should make a Call of Duty Zombies game that's only zombies. The music and rhythm peripheral phase ended last generation. Well, that's true. What do you think the next phase in games is going to be, and what trend do you see dying? Oh, okay, that's fair, but I don't think we're at the end of the zombie phase. You know, we're already in the next trend, and it's been kind of an interesting slow bleed toward this, but the next phase is free to play, and we've always had it, but we've never had high production value free to play games. And you know, whatever you think of Fortnite, there are high production values. There's a ton of effort put into making that game fun and cool. And I mean, when I say high production, like football jerseys, I mean that's like just the concept that somebody actually went to the NFL and got licenses and went to the NFL Players Association, and then you've got all these logo issues that everything has to look right. I mean, that is not easy. So, you know, props to Epic Epic is just freaking the best of the best of the best. But free is the trend. And so the problem with all the games that you love being free is that the publisher has to trade off what happens if I make FIFA Ultimate Team free. I'll get more players, you know, I'll go from 20 million players to 100 million players, but what about the 20 million copies of FIFA that I sell? What if we make Call of Duty, you know, multiplayer, and let's say Blackout, Battle Royale, free? What happens to the 20 million people who buy Call of Duty? What if we make Red Dead Online or GTA Online free? What happens to the 100 million people who bought GTA? And the answer is, it's going to be a very slow migration, but I think the first game that may do it, and again, let's see if they have the guts, is GTA Online. GTA came out in 2013, and GTA Online has been going strong since like the beginning of 2014, call it. It's 5 years old. They've sold 100 million copies, I think it might be 105, of GTA. The game is down to $20 now, and realistically, even if you think they're going to sell 10 million copies at $20, if they made GTA Online free to play, they would make way more than $200 million by expanding the audience. And I think the smart thing to do, and I'm saying this as a call out to Take-Two, but I actually think they're a very, very smart company and very well managed, so I know they get this, is do it a couple of years before GTA 6 launches, get another 100 million people hooked on GTA. If streaming really happens and GTA 6 can be sold as a streaming, you know, game for 50 or 60 bucks, you're going to sell 200 million copies. And so I really think you're going to see big games like GTA Online, Red Dead Online, FIFA Ultimate Team, Call of Duty Blackout. Again, the problem with it is how many people buy FIFA just because they want to play Ultimate Team? And if EA believes that's half of their 20 million units, they're going to have trouble making it free to play. If they believe that's only 5% of their units and people will buy the game anyway, then of course they'll do it. So, you know, let's see how we migrate. The easy way to do it is make Overwatch free to play, and then if there's an Overwatch 2, you have 100 million people playing Overwatch and you can kind of migrate over. But that's the trend I think that's going to happen. Trend I see dying. There's nothing in gaming that is over. Battle Royale is, like, to me, is a bite-sized competitive experience. Like, you know, most of us don't last more than 5 minutes. So if you only have 10 or 15 minutes to play, you can get into Battle Royale. It's not going to be a 5-hour experience. Like you just, I mean, I guess theoretically.
Good if you're good.
If you're good, except that
we're all not.
As the map shrinks, though, there's fewer and fewer places to hide. And so ultimately, I think Battle Royale is here to stay because it's. I think there's a real demand for a bite-sized experience. It's very easy for people to play. I talked to somebody the other day, adult, who's like, I won my first match on Fortnite, and I'm like, how many kills? And he said, 1.
The last one.
Yeah, and I'm like, so you hid the whole time? And he's like, damn right. This week's second question from Twitter from @Ramrod366. What is the best way to monetize Nintendo's strong stable of IP outside of games? Movies, TV shows, apps, or something else? How could it ensure high quality across all these mediums? The best way to monetize Nintendo's strong stable of IP is inside games by making them multi-platform. And unfortunately, Nintendo is just wedded to the concept that it's a hardware company and it's never going to give that up. I think Nintendo would make more money if Nintendo would make all their games multi-platform. And yes, I know Sega did that and it didn't work. Okay, Sega sucks. They don't have good software. Nintendo could pull this off and they would make more money. But you asked the question outside of games. If Nintendo were owned by Disney, Nintendo would make 3 to 5x as much profit. And I say that because we have proof in Marvel and proof in Lucas. So Disney bought both of those, and Marvel profitability is up probably 10 or 20x where it was when Marvel owned Marvel. And again, the Marvel guys, the Marvel guy in charge of movies, Kevin Feige, is the Disney guy in charge of Marvel movies. So it isn't that he didn't get it, it's that Marvel didn't have the capital to finance all these films. But the truth is, there are companies that are really good at exploiting brands, and Disney is the best on the planet. And there are companies that are really bad at it, and with all due respect to you Nintendo fanboys out there, Nintendo's not good at it. So, funny, I remember talking to Reggie, and this has to be 5-6 years ago, about how many Mario and Luigi Halloween costumes I saw. I saw them like in November. I bet it was more. It was probably 2011. And I saw them in November, and I said, God, Halloween, I just had I counted, and I had 15 kids come to my house in Mario or Luigi outfits. And he goes, those weren't ours. We don't license the Halloween costumes. And I went, why not? It's the idea that if you're 2% of Halloween costumes, what percentage of pajamas would you be? What percentage of lunch boxes would you be? What percentage of school supplies, pencils and notebooks and I can't, look, I'm not a merchandising guy, so I don't know, t-shirts, whatever. But Disney is really good at it. I'm not the guy to figure this out. Disney's the guy to figure this out. So if I were Nintendo, I would hire somebody from Disney merchandising and I would put them on exploiting the brand because there's a lot they can do. And the question on high quality across all the mediums, that is a problem. And Disney does its own movies, TV shows, and games. And I mean, they license games with a lot of strict control over games. You don't want to cheapen the brand, and you don't want Mario to have blonde hair. So our next question from SIFTD from Deep Space. Thank you, Jesse, for being a subscriber, a patron. Releasing the Switch early in the year worked out really well for Nintendo. Should PS5 and Xbox 2 follow suit? Good question. When is the best time to launch a console and why? That is a really good question. There's always a debate about whether you want to launch at holiday or you want to launch any other time during the year. And, the question really comes down to, are you ready? If you launch away from holiday, so in March, you don't have holiday demand. I mean, obviously, there's no Easter, or demand, or getting out of school demand, or Father's Day demand. So, so for sure, if you launch in a window where there isn't high gift-giving demand, your demand will be lower. And the one thing that all consoles have in common, except probably the Wii U, is they're sold out when they launch. So the biggest problem I think new consoles have is that they get sold out and there are disappointed consumers who want them. And so the closer you launch to Christmas, the more likely you're going to be sold out. So I remember when the Wii came out, that I had a bunch of clients, and they're investors, and they're millionaires, 100 millionaires, who couldn't find a Wii, and they just couldn't find them. And they were on eBay for like $1,000, probably more. Yeah, more, maybe 1,500. And one thing that all multimillionaires have in common is they're all cheap and they don't like to overpay. So I remember I had this one client who was like, you know, I got to get a Wii for my kid. He's 6 for Christmas, but I don't want to pay more than full price. Can you get me one? So of course I called up GameStop and they're like, yeah, no problem. And I called up the management and they were like, yeah, you know, we'll get you one, you know, but you can get one. And they delivered it to me and I shipped it to the client and he sent my firm $300 and, you know, so nobody made any money on it, but we got one. But that's because they were $1,500 on eBay. You know what? If somebody's willing to pay $1,500, it should go to Nintendo. You know, it should go to Sony. It shouldn't go to somebody who flips a console. So the way to avoid that is launch away from holiday, get your manufacturing capacity up so that you can satisfy demand. And the trick is, and I'm sure you guys aren't expert in this, but the manufacturer of the console, typically it's not a component supply problem. It's typically the actual assembly of the console. And when you assemble a console, and I'm throwing out kind of round numbers because I don't remember, a production line can maybe make, you know, 100,000 consoles a month, which is, you know, 3,000 a day. So, and I'm making this up, it might be 150, but so please don't at me if I'm wrong on this, but I'm close enough. So if a production line is 100,000 a month, then 2 production lines is 200,000 a month. And so if you think you're going to make, you know, sell 1 million consoles a month, you have to go to the assembly company, Foxconn, and say, okay, I need you to set up enough production lines to make 1 million a month. And that's what you make. If demand is 2 million a month, it's not that easy to set up another, you know, double the number of lines putting together your consoles. And it costs money for them because the factory has to create the space, has to hire the people. And so if your demand isn't steady, if it's 2 million a month for 3 months, and then it's 1 million a month thereafter, you don't want to make 2 million a month. You want to make 1 million a month forever. So the better thing to do is launch the console when demand is 1 million a month and maybe make 1.2 so that you're ready for Christmas and build up your inventory and then satisfy demand, build up an extra, you know, couple of million and handle Christmas, and then go back to 1 million a month thereafter. And when you see that first year of demand, you decide if you want to go to 1.3 million a month or drop down to 1.0 million, you know, whatever. So the problem is managing what they call the supply chain, and it costs money to have dedicated manufacturing capability that's bigger. And so all the console manufacturers try to forecast. And what happened with the Wii is Nintendo forecast demand at 14 million. And that's how many they made, and that's how many they sold. And the next year, they figured demand would be 19 million, and that's how many they made, and that's how many they sold. The next year, they went to 21 million, and that was the right number. But imagine if they'd done 21 million the first year, they would have sold that many. So the way I forecast console demand, console sales, is I go to retail, and I actually, before I even head to retail, I look on eBay. And if the price on eBay after a month is a premium, then consoles are still out of supply. We know that. If it's a premium, like, you know, like 500 or 600 bucks on a Switch. The Switch was selling for 400 bucks in March, April, May. Then it dropped to like 400 bucks in June, July. Then it dropped to 350 in August, and in September of 17, it was down to 300 bucks on eBay because they were fully in supply. So that's where I got my forecast, and that's how I figured out what demand was. But the answer is, I think everybody would benefit from launching in the spring. The problem is nobody wants to go second. Everybody wants to launch first. And so far, Microsoft has launched at holiday only. Sony has launched at holiday only. And the Switch is the one who kind of varied from that. And I think it's been very smart of them. So the ideal time to launch, I think, is spring, because you can determine demand, and if you have to tweak your supply chain, probably takes 3 months to kind of expand. But if you launch in March, by June demand is 20% or 50% higher. You can tweak the production, and then you can satisfy demand. So really good question. It wouldn't surprise me if Sony launched in March or April, but I doubt they will. So I'd say 20% chance that they launch in March or April, 80% chance they launch in holiday 20. Our last question this week from YouTube, from Coach Milldog. Why hasn't Nintendo, Sony, or Microsoft tried to re-release some of their older catalog onto the mobile marketplace? Porting an NES or SNES game to mobile doesn't seem like it'd be that difficult, and it's more convenient than carrying another device like Switch around. Of the three, Nintendo's got the best library by a lot. And the answer why haven't they is because, honestly, they don't get it. So they decided that they can sell you a game. And where they've blown it on mobile is, and they did do this with Super Mario Run. They tried to sell it to you, and nobody bought it. And so I vividly remember this when Iwata was alive. First, he tried to tell game developers that you never want to make mobile games because you get screwed. And then when people asked if they would make free-to-play games, he said, we prefer free to start. So that's what Super Mario Run was, free to start. And Super Mario Run, it was a new game. It was a bottom-up build. But why not just take Super Mario Brothers 3 and put it on mobile? It would have been the same as Super Mario Run, and it would have cost them $50,000 to port.
Yeah.
But no, because they won't do that. I personally think if Nintendo were smarter than they are, they would take the entire library of you could even do NES, but of GBA, GBC, DS, 3DS content, and say for $6 a month, $10 a month, you can play any Nintendo handheld game ever on any tablet or any phone. If they did that, I'm not kidding, I think 20 million people would pay them $10 a month. More, maybe 50. I think there are that many people. If you subscribe to Spotify for $10 a month, and there's something like 50 million of you to listen to music, why wouldn't you subscribe to Nintendo and play 2,000 games? I don't even know how many there are, a lot. They would absolutely kill it. And they could do tiers where you could only play GBC and GBA games, and a higher tier for DS and a higher tier for 3DS. They would destroy it. Now, the reason those games don't work on mobile as a regular free-to-play mobile game is they're not designed to sell you anything. So mobile games that monetize are built by really smart people, let's just use Supercell, where there's a compulsion loop that gets you to come back and gets you to want to spend money instead of taking the time to build something. You just want a shortcut. And Nintendo games don't work that way. And they shouldn't work that way, and I don't suggest Nintendo try to get in that business. That's a hard business. But the games that you buy, like Super Mario Brothers 3, Nintendo would make so much more money if they would throw that in as part of a subscription. Friends, old TV show. Like, I think it ended in 99 or something, or 2000. Do we want to watch Friends? Well, obviously somebody does, because Netflix just licensed Friends for $100 million for 1 year. So if Friends is worth a 20-year-old TV show is worth $100 million for 1 year, what's a 20-year-old Nintendo game worth? I'm telling you, it's worth that much. So my bias is Nintendo absolutely could dominate mobile. and I'm not even sure $10 is the right amount. It could be more. But you could do tiers where some guys pay $30 a month and some guys pay $2 a month. And you can for $2 a month, you can play one game until you get tired of it and then switch to another game for $2 a month. However, you could make it really small. But I think if you did that, I think you'd have 100 million people paying you. So yes, I think that's an opportunity. NES, GBA, DS, yes. PlayStation, not so much. You saw the PlayStation Classic, and it bombed. And the reason is there really were a handful of good games on there, but not enough. And PlayStation games, we all have like 10 that we loved, but there's just not enough. There's not a deep enough catalog to pull that off. Nintendo's got the catalog, and all because of handheld. So I think that's a great question.
He asked you though, why aren't they doing it?
Because Nintendo doesn't get it, and Sony and Microsoft don't have a deep enough catalog.
Okay.
That's the answer. And Sony proved they don't have a deep enough catalog with PlayStation Classic. Nintendo just doesn't get it. I don't think they ever will. And I'd say it's sort of like Apple, where Tim Cook's not changing anything that Steve Jobs put in motion, but Apple is killing it, and they're doing the right thing. And so it would be blasphemy to say Steve Jobs was wrong. It's not blasphemy to say Iwata was wrong on mobile. Thank you for joining us on this week's Pachter Factor. I am very, very appreciative if you are a patron on Patreon of SIFTD.net. It's $2 a month for Pachter Factor, and that gets you 50 episodes a year, 50 cents an episode to get it early, and that pays for the production. That keeps us alive. So if you can do that, great. If you can't afford that, it's free to link your Twitch account to your Amazon Prime account. That's $2.50 a month. So please, if you haven't done that lately, remember to link or just renew the subscription. Once you've linked, it's a one-button click and you renew the subscription. We get $2.50, and Shane can afford to come back out here on a weekend. And if you can't do either of those, give me a follow at Michael Pachter on Twitter, and make sure you give me a shout out. I am following you because I feel guilty. I will retweet and I will be your friend. I don't answer anybody who doesn't follow me, so you got to follow me to criticize. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next week.